Since 1636, National Guard units have been serving the people of the United States. The soldiers, airmen, veterans, and civilians that make up the New Jersey National Guard have a legendary history serving during homeland crisis and foreign missions. These are their stories. Recently, we sat down with Walter R. Nall, retired New Jersey National Guard Army Colonel and Acting Deputy Commissioner of the New Jersey Department of Military and Veterans Affairs. Colonel Nall has over 30 years of public service behind him and begins his transition to retirement January of 2023. He has served on both the home front and overseas. Today we will ask the Colonel about his military career, his experiences as an African American officer in both the Alabama and New Jersey National Guard, and the changes he has seen in the military over 3 decades of service. Colonel, thank you for taking some time today to tell us your story. Let's start with your initial entry into the military. When, where, and why did you join the military, sir?
Well, I joined the military on April 18, 1983. I was a sophomore at Troy State University in Troy, Alabama. My initial plan was actually to join the Marine Corps Reserves, but I had no transportation to get 45 miles up the way, so I went to the National Guard Armory across the street from the school. I didn't really grow up in a military family. I had a brother that was in the Army, and then he moved on to the Reserves. My father was not a believer that men of color should be in the military because of the generation in which he grew up in. So he saw the segregation, Jim Crow, mean behaviors toward service members even after they have been to war and back. So he was not a fan of that at all. He didn't think there was a place for any man or woman of color to be in the military. But when I did enlist, he was still proud of me of making a strong decision for myself.
So even though your values differed, he still respected what you were doing?
Absolutely.
It's pretty awesome. Can you give a brief timeline of your military career from as broad as you can, from 1983 to about now, so maybe important moments?
Yeah.
Did you come in as enlisted go officer? Did you get a straight officer? How did your career progress?
Yeah, I enlisted as an E1, radio teletype operator, which required a secret security clearance, which I thought was pretty hot at the time. And being an E1, I made it to E3, but I had entirely too many people telling me what to do, and you know how that go. One sergeant say one thing, the other sergeant say something else, and you stuck juggling the balls there. So I said the only way to make that better is not to stand on the side and complain, but be a decision maker. So I was a college student anyway. I enlisted as a sophomore, as I said earlier. I started OCS in my junior year, beginning of my senior year. Went to state OCS in Alabama, Fort McClellan. I got commissioned in June. I graduated from college in May, commissioned in June. I was at the artillery school in July, all in 1986.
So 1986 was a big year for you.
Big year. Finished artillery school, got assigned as a fire direction officer in a unit in Phoenix City, Alabama, which is on Eastern Time, one of the only cities in the state of Alabama on Eastern Time because it's close proximity to Fort Benning. And did that for a few years, moved to New Jersey in 1989, assigned right across the way over here with the 4th of the 112th Field Artillery, then to the 1st of the 112th, Fire and Battery Commander, Headquarters Battery Commander, Staff Officer, and then the 1st of the 112th closed. We had to case the colors, and our branch transferred to logistics, which was a challenge for me. I love the field artillery, there's no doubt about it. But I did branch transfer, and I became a force multiplier in that respect because now I know what the warfighter wants. So I can predict a lot of things, particularly when you're working with combat arms guys. And I think that's the beauty of being a combat arms officer first and then go into a different branch. You can see things from a different perspective. You can feel what the commander wants on the ground if you've been there yourself. So that was very helpful. And then it was off to Iraq in 2005 and Afghanistan in 2011. Now, in between that time, of course, we had our emergency responses there, bridge and tunnels and storms and things of that nature. That's actually one of the proudest moments of knowing that I was a guardsman. You know, when everybody else is hunkered down in the house, we're out there doing things that makes a difference in the neighborhood, in the community, or across the state, those impacted areas. It's not the other branches of service, it's the National Guard. So I was very proud of that, you know. Not necessarily putting your life on the line, but certainly being out in the elements when all others are encouraged to stay at home, still providing service.
Would you say, I just want to add this because you mentioned that, the construct of the Guard.
Yes.
What's that really meant to you? Because I guess from Alabama to New Jersey, you kind of call New Jersey and Alabama home, and you take pride in both. Or,
Yeah, I do.
You know, and whether it was Sandy or Bob or Bill or any hurricane, is that very unique for you to how active duty may have been when you first came on and things of that nature?
I think it's a little closer to home, you know, closer to the heart, because you see some of these areas, you frequent some of these areas, you know some of the people, and it's comforting for them to know that someone knows them. You know, that personal connection, I think, is worthwhile. One other couple of things I forgot is, you know, I was the pre-mobilization training assistance element commander. So when the 50th Brigade Combat Team deployed in 2008, 2009, we were responsible for that 3,000 pack deployment, you know, getting that pre-mobilization training done. And in between that time, you know, I took command. Like I said, I went to Afghanistan, but I was then I rounded out my career at 57 Troop Command, the first person from Tuskegee, Alabama, to command the 57 Troop Command.
That's pretty amazing. That's pretty amazing. Right. You got in '83. Mm-hmm. What have you seen change during your time in service? What changed out of many of them do you think stands out the absolute most to you?
Well, I'll tell you what, a lot of things have transpired, and I retired in 16, and a lot of things have transpired since 2016. So one of the things were women coming into combat arms. That wasn't foreign to me. We had women at Fort Sill, Oklahoma, in the basic course for cannon artillery in 1986. I guess the caveat was they were not allowed to command firing batteries. They could command HHBs or headquarters batteries, or the service battery that provide all the maintenance support and, you know, all the other classes of supply support for artillery battalion. But now, you know, I think it's a beautiful thing, because now it's the great equalizer. Everything is a competitive sport, you know, regardless of where you sit, be it the next command, the next position. It's a competitive sport because that commander would like to have the best qualified on his or her staff. So it may be a young lady that happens to be a cannon artillery officer, or it may be a young lady that just finished the Ranger School. You know, it's fine. I believe that most systems are designed for people to be successful. And I fell into a trap myself as a captain, trying to blame the system when it was actually me. Okay? So when I got that good chewing out by my battalion commander, Bill Fink, still love the guy, he chewed me out. He told me nothing he said was inaccurate. I had to go home and take a hard look in the mirror and find out that it was really me trying to blame other things for my inaction, to not be competitive. I would just encourage everyone, make sure you start off in the mirror, make sure you're doing your part, and that you make sure that you keep yourself competitive. When we were deployed, I had a lot of young soldiers, you know, E3s, E4s, and we did a career development plan. My Sergeant Major, John Humphreys, and we did a career development plan for every single soldier, and counseled every single soldier in that unit. 60 plus people, like an element headquarters size unit. And those that followed the plan, all were successful. Those that did not follow the plan remained exactly where they were.
It was not that long ago that the military was even segregated.
Right.
Things like that. Coming through as an African American man, a young African American man in your early 20s, all the way to the end of your career, what was it like as an African American going through basic training all the way through becoming a leader?
Well, I think it depends on the audience that I have at the time. I've gone through a range, a full spectrum. Some of my more seasoned veterans, oh, really? or, oh, I thought you would be the sergeant major. I didn't even, you're the first black officer I ever met. So it comes down to, depend on the audience and the age groups and those demographics. But on the other side of that coin, you have people that say, remember that you're representing all of us. Okay, and when I was in Afghanistan, my fraternity brothers and I would meet every Friday for dinner. And we talked about that a lot. And we're talking about 15, 20, in some cases 25 leaders. Not always officers, senior NCOs, contractors, but management level contractors. And we talked about our obligation to the race, believe it or not, because we're being judged for the race. So we have to make sure that we keep our integrity about us, our wits about us, and make sure that we come from the right place when we make decisions, and make sure we're fair and equitable across the board, and get people to understand why those decisions are made. Sometimes it's not, I'm the commander, this is what I want, and that's it. Sometimes you have to explain the whys, because it makes it more palatable for the people on the other end.
So, how do you think things have evolved for African Americans within the services over the years? I could be incorrect, but perhaps in the Navy back in the day, you could only be a cook.
Right.
Things of that nature. What have you seen change for African Americans in the services?
Well,
and evolved.
I think that things have evolved tremendously over the last 20, 30 years. Even as late as 2022, last year, we've seen a lot of firsts. Marine Corps, first 4-star African American general. That's General Michael Langley, or General Charles Brown, just happened to be the first black chief of staff for the Air Force. The Vice Admiral Michelle Howard, she was a skipper for a naval warship that helped the USS Merce during that time frame. So, and just recently, it's a couple of weeks ago, I think it was like the 15th or so of December, the Marine Corps had their first 2-star African American female, Lorna Malak. So there are a lot of firsts as recent as last year, and I think we'll continue to get more of those in other branches of service. But we have to make sure that our minority officers, I'm making a broader net now, our minority officers and NCOs understand that they have to bring something to the table. They have to strive to be the next 2-star, the next 3-star, the next 4-star. So yes, are we talking about doing over and beyond? Absolutely.
Did you think you had the potential to become a colonel when you joined?
If it wasn't for Colonel Bill Fink, I would have been retired out as a captain. So once he adjusted my attitude, I went on and did the appropriate educational requirements for the Army. I think I've spent like 5 or 6 years straight military school, just getting myself ready to be competitive. At that point, once you hit light colonel, you have nowhere else to go but up. So I had the time. I'm 806. I did not get to the War College. I think I was in Afghanistan when I should have been at the War College. Time had passed me by there. I was running up against my mandatory retirement date. But it's been a great ride. It's been a great ride to leave as a brigade commander. And on the civilian side, I still was progressing with the Department of Military and Veteran Affairs. Started off at the Youth Challenge Academy as the first commandant. So I did that for roughly a decade. Then I came to HR and did some special projects there. I did EEO work. I did hearing officer work. I supervised one of the transitional housing programs. I was brought to the headquarters as a director of veteran services that covered down on both transitional housing programs, the cemetery, monuments, all benefits that touch a veteran in the state of New Jersey. And here I am now, getting ready to retire in the coming months as the Deputy Commissioner for Veteran Affairs, which means I picked up, the 3 nursing homes and some other ancillary things. So when I stepped through the door 1 September of 1994, right here at this headquarters to In Process, I had no idea I would be sitting here. But if you apply yourself, make sure that you don't burn any bridges, because you may have to cross over those again. Be fair, just, maintain your integrity. Sometimes it's okay to agree to disagree. but still accomplish the mission, stay mission focused, and you will progress.
I know you briefly mentioned a couple of very high-ranking African-American officers. Any kind of feeling inside about that? Pride for them, yourself, your ethnic background, things like that?
Absolutely. Because we have to make sure we have a broad cross section of positive images for our young people to see. It is attainable. I was just home for my high school class reunion. 40 years. 40 years, right? I'm just saying. But anyway, here we are. And I'm a retired 06, and I took a picture with all the other veterans in my class. They were all, my roommate from college, we went to OCS together. We did everything together. He got out as a captain, okay? And I am considered the highest ranked person from our class. And everyone respects that, and they're proud of me for that. And I respect them for their contribution to the military as well. So it was just a great time to just sit amongst veterans that you've known since Pee-wee football or elementary school, and just sit back and reminisce and talk, and then share those veterans' experiences. It's a beautiful thing.
You had mentioned earlier, if you pick out one moment in your career that stands out, and why? I know you mentioned one or two things.
I think what stood out to me was after 9/11. After 9/11, it changed the whole dynamic. It changed the Guard. It changed everybody's perception on what it meant to serve. It called people into service. We didn't have a lot of, after 9/11, we didn't have a lot of legacy equipment. We started getting upgraded equipment, better training, and then we became that force multiplier that was needed going forward. Some units went a little sooner than others, but for me it was 04 to 05 in Iraq. Some units went a lot sooner than that, on the initial push and that. But, those negative connotations like you saw in Rambo and all those type things, a bunch of guys just running off to summer camp and, all those things are over. They have been over for a long time, but I still believe there are people who think that's what it is. Even in the in the deployment to Afghanistan, working for Special Operations Command, there were some people that were a little concerned, about the this reserve component unit coming there. But what they quickly learned is that a battalion level commander that's an 05, that's not 10 years, that's more like 15, 20 years. You know what I mean? 15 years of service. Seen a lot, done a lot. You just don't get a sergeant major. You get a sergeant major that's happened to be a master mechanic, or just happened to be a Black SEAL person, or happened to be a school teacher, or happened to be any of these vocations. So those are force multipliers within the reserve component that you're going to get, because we did more things for this command in the first 90 days than the group ahead of me that was an active duty unit did for the entire year. Yeah. And they loved it. They loved it so much that they didn't want us to leave. But January 2nd, we had to be out of theater. We had to pop smoke. But here's the deal. Based on the activities of the 119th CSSB relationship with Special Operations Command, the 117th got a similar mission in a different part of the world, because they knew that New Jersey Guard actually brought, quality to the table, and they appreciated that. Types of units and sustaining those types of units is a competitive sport with every other state and territory associated with our U.S. military. So, yes, we like those nicer MOSs, the cybersecurity. That will always be here. It will never go away. Ground forces will always be here. It will never go away. Combat arms will always be here and never go away. UAS, yes, it will always be here. It will never go away and bump up your intelligence posture. So New Jersey has a way of getting things done and sustaining them. It just depends on what the leaders want to go going forward. Where do they really want to go?
How about for yourself? What do you think your future holds? I know you got another big date coming up here on the 12th and all. What do you have, Colonel Nall, planned for the future?
Well, after 28 years of this and 33 years of military service, I think I just want to take a knee for a little while, focus on family, make sure that I'm doing the right things by my family, because I know they have sacrificed time and emotion and everything else based on my career. So it's time for me to sit back and just be still for a minute and just enjoy life, do a little traveling and enjoy the journey.
Advice, words of wisdom for veterans, service members, recruits, of any background. What would you say? What, you got anything for them?
I got plenty. So let me say it this way. First, you need to find a good mentor. You need a good mentor. Everyone needs a shepherd. You know, I used to say things like a commander need to be able to talk to another commander, because they're the only two people that can relate to that. A chaplain needs a chaplain, and everyone needs a shepherd. So find you a good mentor that's focused on your success, not their own success. You know what I mean? And let them build you that way. Never place yourself in a position where you're not competitive for promotions. Lean forward. Volunteer to take on the tough assignment. It will pay dividends later. Just a couple of recommendations. Always put your service before yourself. Keep your head about you when all about you are losing theirs and blaming it on you. Just because people are acting a little erratic don't mean you have to act erratic. Keep your head about you when all about you are losing theirs and blaming it on you. Maintain your integrity, because that's all you got. At the end of the day, from the date of birth to the date of death, all you got in between that little dash is your life story, but let's hope that it's based on integrity. Only speak when you got something to say. Okay? Not just to speak, to say something. You know what I mean? So I would encourage that. And only talk about what you know about. You know, every conversation that comes up don't necessarily need someone to chime in. If you don't know the subject matter, it's okay to remain silent. Take in the information, research it, educate yourself, and then reattack.
I just wanted to touch real briefly. I know it had been mentioned about Tuskegee and growing up there. Did any part of the story of Tuskegee, its history and its heritage, play a part in you thinking about joining the armed forces?
What I really wanted to do was be a U.S. Marshal. That's what I wanted to be. I wanted to be in law enforcement. I did work corrections for a little while. Then I realized that I cannot work corrections because I started acting just like the inmates. That's just part of it, you know. And my friends saw it in me. I did not see it, but they saw it. So when I came out of that environment, I did something else, and hence Youth Challenge Academy. No, Tuskegee is known, you know, the Tuskegee Airmen. Everybody knows Tuskegee Airmen. And believe it or not, short story, but a good story. I was about 7, 8 years old, and my brother's wife took us out to the airfield, and we met Chief Anderson. Now, Chief Anderson was the guy that you see on a lot of the photos with Lady Bird, okay? That's Chief Anderson. The guy, you know, he's actually from this area. He's from Pennsylvania area, and he learned how to fly from New Jersey, and he used to take trips back and forth across the country, blah, blah, blah. But he was a primary trainer at the airfield with the Tuskegee Airmen. Now, granted, at 7, 8 years old, you don't know who this dude is. You just want to get in the airplane. This was my first airplane ride.
With him?
With him, in his little private plane. And we fly around the county and we point out things, you know, let you see your house from the sky, and all this beautiful stuff. But I didn't realize how important that guy was until I was an adult. And I drove by his house as a teenager damn near every day. But when I became an adult and understood how important he was, I stopped. And I just said, thank you. You know, I didn't, you know.
You didn't realize the importance.
I did not know how important he was, nor did he showcase how important he was. You know, he's a very humble guy.
Humility.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you could pass by them in the grocery store. It was no big deal, anywhere. And that's
Is that something
Tuskegee.
that you took with you?
Yes, absolutely. I keep my humbleness about me. If you look around in the office, there's not a whole lot of stuff up in the offices, and what's comical, I got all these plaques, certificates, and this, and right now, I don't know where they're going to go, but Tuskegee is a small town, five, 6 traffic lights, you in and out, but we've had a lot of success come out of Tuskegee, and they're very humble people. Like the bands, the Commodores and Seventh Wonder and a couple other smaller groups and backup bands, the Mean Machine and Ultimate Ford. They're primarily a Texas band. And we all grew up together, plus or minus 5-10 years. Your family probably knew the family that lived across town. It's just one of those type things.
Small
Yeah,
town.
small town, yeah.
Was there a big difference between Alabama and New Jersey when you moved up here?
Huge.
What was I mean, I know it's not on the list of questions. I'm just curious myself.
Huge
Was there a
difference.
difference in the Army, the culture, every part of it? The
Yeah.
Army culture?
Yeah, the Army culture is completely different. Alabama Guard is reflective of the Alabama character. And if people had biases, they would let you know that. And I can respect that. Whereas in the Northeast, I wasn't here 30 days and I had 2 negative experiences. And all, that was just, why are we talking about this? I actually at English Town, and somebody thought I was trying to steal one of their watches or something like that, because he was knocking his watches off the counter there. He didn't know it. He was doing something, and the watches were flipping over. I grabbed the case, put it back, and of course now, I'm trying to steal one of his watches. My watch is better than the watches that you're selling, homeboy. Don't flatter yourself, okay? But we had to get the police involved. It was just a mess, that type of thing. And I think I respect those that have those biases, that make them known up front. How to exactly how to handle it, versus those that are doing it, in a clandestine fashion.
Do you have anything else that you want to add? It's really just a forum. You can speak to civilian career, military career, anything to, up and coming African American officers that aspire to be you or do take your career path.
So, I think I've pretty much laid out a lot of things. But for the broader masses, all our minorities out there, not just black people, but all the minorities out there have been engaged in the military from the beginning, okay? And we have to make sure that we tell our own stories and not let others tell the story for you, because things are omitted, for the lack of a better word, or embellished in a fashion, or even minimized in a fashion based on gender or race, and that's sad. Let's tell the whole story. One that sticks out with me was the Teddy Roosevelt San Juan Hill, charging up San Juan Hill. I did it all by myself. I believe the Buffalo Soldiers were there too. And I think they may have been there before you got there. Those are the stories. We keep dealing with this over and over again, where what's wrong with just telling American history for what it is and digest it, process it, and move forward. Learn from it. Let's not repeat negative activities, but learn from it and keep going. That's inspirational for me. Another one is one of my fraternity brothers, Charles Young. He was going to be retired out of active duty. This man got on a horse in Ohio and rode from Ohio to D.C. to report to the Secretary of Defense, or Secretary of War, I guess at that time, to show that he was still fit for duty, fit for active duty. A horse from Ohio to D.C. to demonstrate that he was fit for active duty. Those are the hurdles. He did make it 06. He was posthumously promoted to Brigadier General a year or so ago, so I'm very proud of that. Those types of acts of courage, be it, Buffalo Soldiers, Tuskegee Airmen, all the other ethnic groups that have these signature organizations that went out and did great things, we need more of that. And let's not minimize what they did. They did great works. Our Native Americans did great works, okay? And we need to showcase those. We need to showcase it, not hide it or minimize it, degrade it. Let's not do that. Let's just tell the whole American story. It's okay. We'll all be proud for that.
It was a wonderful interview. Thank you for telling the story from your eyes. That was retired New Jersey Army National Guard Colonel Walter Nall. His captivating story is just one of many stories that we are excited to share. You can always follow the New Jersey Army and Air Guard on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and the New Jersey Department of Military and Veterans Affairs on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Information about both organizations can be found at www.nj.gov/military. If you or your favorite veteran have a New Jersey National Guard story you want to share, please email the Public Affairs Office at kenneth.brown@dmava.nj.gov. Or for further information on New Jersey Militia Museum oral histories, or to participate in the program, please visit or contact Carol Fowler at the museum in Seagirt. Call 732-974-4571 or email Carol at carol.fowler@dmava.nj.gov. On behalf of the New Jersey Department of Military and Veterans Affairs Public Affairs Office, thanks for spending your time with us.